Private First Class Emma Harris adjusted her patrol cap and squinted against the morning sun, the brim doing little to shield her eyes from the glare bouncing off the asphalt. Norfolk Naval Station was alive with motion supply trucks rumbling. Toward the docks, Marines jogging in formation along the perimeter road, and a steady stream of vehicles inching toward the main gate where she stood post. To most soldiers, gate duty was the definition of monotony. You checked IDs, waved cars, through, repeated the same greetings, and endured long hours in the elements. It was, as her squad mates often joked, babysitting with a rifle, but Emma didn't see it that way. For her, the gate represented responsibility. It was the first line of defense, the point where the outside world ended and the Navy's most vital assets began. Whoever walked or drove past her checkpoint wasn't just entering a base. They were entering a protected space filled with classified operations, billion-dollar equipment, and thousands of men and women in uniform. The weight of that knowledge kept her spine straight, her eyes alert, and her tone crisp. "Next vehicle," she called, stepping forward as a pickup truck rolled into position. The driver, a petty officer with salt and pepper hair, handed her his ID. She scanned it with a practiced motion, confirmed his access, and returned it with a polite nod. "You're good to go, sir." "Thank you, Private," he said, driving forward. Emma's boots shifted on the hot pavement. The August. Humidity clung to her like a second skin, sweat trickling down her neck and soaking into her undershirt. She resisted the urge to wipe her brow. Discipline, she reminded herself, even in discomfort, maintained bearing. A couple of Marines stationed nearby weren't as rigid. She caught snippets of their conversation between car jokes about last night's bar crawl, complaints about their shift, a laugh about how nothing ever happens at this stupid gate. Emma ignored them. She had learned early in training that focus was everything. When her instructors barked commands, when the drill field was chaos, the ones who thrived weren't necessarily the loudest or strongest. They were the ones who locked in, tuned out distractions, and executed every order with precision. That mindset had carried her through basic, and it carried her now. She scanned the next ID, memorizing the face before handing it back. The line of vehicles stretched. Past the barricade, each one a test of vigilance. One forged credential, one overlooked anomaly, and the consequences could ripple far beyond the gate. Still, boredom crept in, like an enemy probing for weakness. The rhythm of cars and IDs created a lulling pattern, and Emma fought it with small rituals. Straighten her shoulders after every third vehicle. Shift her weight only at the halfway mark of an hour. Recite the general orders of a sentry silently when her mind began to drift. She wasn't here to coast through a shift. She was here to earn respect, though she doubted anyone noticed. That thought stung more than she admitted. She had enlisted with a fire in her chest, eager to prove herself. But in the weeks since arriving at Norfolk, her role had been reduced to this, standing watch day after day at the gate. Meanwhile, others in her unit were rotating through more prestigious assignments, working in secure facilities, shadowing officers, assisting with logistics. She wondered if her superiors doubted her potential, or if this was simply the lot of a newcomer. "Next vehicle," she said firmly, pushing the doubt aside. The sedan rolled forward. A civilian contractor leaned out the window, handing over credentials with a distracted glance at his phone. Emma's eyes narrowed. She studied the ID, cross-checked the holographic security strip, then lifted her gaze. "Sir, I'll need you to put the phone down while I verify," she said. The contractor sighed, but complied. Emma handed back the card with a clipped "thank you." The exchange lasted less than 30 seconds, but Emma's pulse quickened. Complacency was the enemy. She couldn't let herself slip, not even once. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, baking the pavement. Her throat was dry, her stomach hollow, but she remained rooted in place. She thought of her father, a retired Army sergeant who had drilled into her as a teenager. Respect is built when no one is watching. Do the small things right, and the big things will follow. Those words became her private mantra, one she repeated with every ID checked, every salute rendered. Yet even she couldn't have imagined how soon those words would be tested. It began. With a hum of anticipation, a black SUV appeared at the end of the line, its tinted windows reflecting the harsh sunlight. Something about its presence cut through the monotony. It wasn't just the vehicle itself, it was the way the Marines nearby suddenly straightened, their casual conversation dying mid-sentence. Emma's instincts sharpened. She tracked the SUV as it rolled closer, her grip tightening on her clipboard. Whoever was inside, they mattered. The SUV pulled up. The driver's window glided down, revealing a man in his 40s with close-cropped hair, a jawline carved from granite, and eyes that radiated quiet authority. His uniform was immaculate, the ribbons on his chest a silent record of battles. Fought and victories earned. He extended his ID card. Commander James Rourke, the text read. Emma's stomach flipped. She knew the name, even if she had never seen the man in person. Rourke wasn't just another officer, he was the commander. A decorated Navy SEAL, his exploits had circulated in hushed tones around the base. Stories of missions deep in hostile territory, of soldiers rescued against impossible odds, of scars hidden beneath his composed exterior. He was a man whose presence alone commanded silence. Emma's fingers trembled for half a second before she forced them steady. She examined the ID carefully, scanning the holograms, checking the expiration date, matching the photo to the face. In front of her, procedure, she reminded herself. No matter who sits in that seat, protocol is protocol. When she returned the card, she did so with crisp precision. Thank you, sir. Rourke didn't immediately drive on. Instead, his eyes lingered on her, studying her posture, her unwavering tone, the way she had refused to let nerves compromise professionalism. Emma swallowed hard, but refused to falter. She held her stance, chin high, gaze respectful yet firm. Behind her, she could feel the Marines shifting uneasily, as if bracing for something unusual. And something unusual did happen. The SUV door opened. Rourke stepped out, boots hitting the pavement with a solid thud. The movement sent a ripple through the checkpoint. Marines fell silent. Contractors froze. Even the flow of vehicles seemed to pause in collective anticipation. Emma's pulse roared in her ears. Commanders didn't exit their vehicles at the gate. Not for anyone. Yet here he was, striding toward her. Commander James Rourke's boots struck the pavement with a heavy authority that silenced the checkpoint. Every sound seemed to fade, the whir of engines idling in line, the chatter of Marines, even the drone of cicadas in the trees. All that remained was the sharp cadence of his steps as he approached Private First Class Emma Harris. Emma's lungs constricted. She had been trained to stand tall under pressure, but this was no drill instructor barking in her ear. This was him. Rourke wasn't a man of myths, he was flesh and blood, and now he was walking straight toward her. "Sir?" Emma said cautiously, her voice steady despite the thundering in her chest. Rourke stopped directly in front of her. His eyes, steely blue, held hers for a long moment, measuring her as though weighing her worth in silence. Then, with a motion that stunned every soldier within sight, he lifted his hand and rendered a crisp salute. Emma froze. For the briefest instant, she wondered if she was hallucinating from the heat, if the relentless August sun had finally cooked her brain. A commander, a decorated SEAL officer, was saluting her, a 21-year-old private standing post at the gate. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. She snapped into position, returning the salute with flawless precision. The air seemed to shiver. Marines along the checkpoint stiffened, eyes widening. A petty officer whispered, "Did he just—" Another hushed him with a sharp elbow. The salute lingered. Not a casual flick, not a token gesture, but a deliberate acknowledgement. When Rourke finally lowered his hand, the respect in the act remained, hanging heavy in the humid air. Emma's heart raced. She wanted to ask why, but her throat locked. Soldiers weren't supposed to question commanders. Still, the thought burned inside her. What did he see in me? Rourke didn't speak. He simply gave her the smallest nod, a gesture, almost imperceptible, before turning back toward his vehicle. He climbed in, closed the door, and the SUV pulled forward through the gate. The silence broke like glass. "Holy hell," one Marine muttered. "Did that just happen?" "I've been here 6 years," another said, shaking his head. Never seen that before." Emma kept her eyes forward, refusing to let her composure crack. But inside, her thoughts swirled like a storm. Later that day, the whispers spread across the base. By the time Emma reported off duty, the story had already taken on a life of its own. In the chow hall, soldiers leaned over their trays. "You hear about the gate?" "Yeah," Rourke saluted a private. "First." "No way. I swear to God, half the checkpoint saw it." The rumor spread beyond her control. Emma could feel eyes following her when she walked through the corridors, soldiers nudging each other, murmuring as she passed. She hated the attention, hated the spotlight it threw on her. She hadn't done anything heroic. She had just done her job. That night in the barracks, her roommate grinned like a cat who had found cream. "You're famous," Specialist Torres teased, tossing a rolled-up sock across the room. Private Harris, the woman who made Rourke salute. "Stop," Emma muttered, unlacing her boots. "I'm serious," Torres said, laughing. "Do you know how many people would kill for that moment? You'll be a legend in basic training stories by next month." Emma shook her head. "I don't even know why he did it." "Maybe because you didn't faint." Emma smirked despite herself, but the unease lingered. She wasn't chasing recognition. She wanted respect, yes, but she wanted it earned through steady service, not some unexplained anomaly that now defined her. Still, deep down, she replayed the salute over and over in her mind, the weight of it, the deliberateness, the way his eyes had locked onto hers. There was meaning in it. She just didn't know what. The next morning, she was summoned. Her sergeant, a gruff man named Staff Sergeant Daniels, stood with arms crossed as she entered his office. His expression was unreadable. "Private Harris," he said flatly, "Commander Rourke has requested you." Emma blinked. "Requested me, Sergeant?" Daniels's jaw flexed. "Personally, for temporary detail. Don't ask me why, I don't know, and I don't care. But when a SEAL commander makes a request, you don't say no. You'll report to Building 12 at 0800 tomorrow." Emma's stomach dropped. Building 12, the restricted compound, where SEAL staff operated, the kind of place a private like her wasn't even supposed to look at too long. "Yes, Sergeant," she said automatically, though her voice carried the tremor of disbelief. Daniels narrowed his eyes. "Don't screw this up. You've been given a rare opportunity. Prove the man right, whatever he sees in you." Emma saluted, then exited the office, her legs numb. That night, sleep evaded her. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Why her? She wasn't exceptional. She wasn't top of her class. She hadn't deployed, hadn't earned combat ribbons, hadn't even left the damn gate. All she had was discipline showing up, standing tall, following protocol when others let their posture slack. Was that enough to draw the attention of a man like Rourke? Torres's voice drifted from the bunk across the room. "You're really quiet tonight." Emma hesitated, then admitted softly, "What if I don't belong there?" Torres rolled over, her silhouette faint in the darkness. "Emma, belonging isn't about rank or assignments. It's about showing up and doing the job better than anyone else." That's what he saw. That's why he saluted. Emma lay still, the words sinking into her chest. When dawn broke, she would find out if Torres was right. Because tomorrow, she wouldn't be the gate guard anymore. Tomorrow, she would walk into Building 12, under the watchful eyes of the most feared and respected commander on base. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would be the same. The morning air carried the faint scent of salt from the harbor as Emma Harris marched toward Building 12. Her boots struck the pavement with a rhythm that matched the hammering of her heart. The structure loomed ahead, different from the other. Offices on base. It was squat, windowless, and heavy with the aura of secrecy. She paused at the entrance checkpoint. A Navy master-at-arms scanned her orders with a skeptical brow, as though doubting a private had any business here. After verifying, he handed back the paper. "You're cleared," he said flatly. "Follow the hallway. Wait until you're called." Inside, the air was cool and still, humming faintly with the buzz of fluorescent lights. The hall smelled faintly of coffee and oiled metal. Emma's spine stiffened as she walked, passing closed doors marked with coded numbers and signs stamped "Restricted Access." Each step carried her further from the familiar gate, deeper into a world few privates glimpsed. She reached a waiting room. Chairs lined the wall, empty except for her. A clock ticked steadily, each second dragging. Emma folded her hands in her lap, forcing her breath into measured rhythm. After what felt like an hour, but was probably 5 minutes, a door opened. "Private Harris," a voice called. Emma stood. Instantly, shoulders square. The officer who beckoned her in was a lieutenant, young but hardened, his eyes sharp as razors. He said nothing more, only gestured. Emma followed him down another hall, through a final door into an office that radiated quiet power. Commander Rourke stood behind the desk. He wasn't in dress uniform this time. Instead, he wore fatigues, sleeves rolled, revealing forearms marked with faint scars. His posture was relaxed, but his presence filled the room. He looked up from a file and fixed her with that same unyielding gaze she remembered from the gate. "Private Harris," he said evenly. "Sir," Emma replied, snapping a salute. Rourke returned it, a smaller gesture than the one at the gate, but still deliberate. He closed the file, leaned back, and studied her in silence. The pause stretched, until Emma's muscles screamed with tension. Finally, he spoke. "Do you know why you're here?" "No, sir," she admitted. He nodded once, as if approving her honesty. "I watched you yesterday. Most privates treat gate duty like punishment. They slouch. They cut corners. You didn't?" Emma swallowed. "It's my post, sir. I take it seriously." That's why I saluted. The words struck her like a jolt. She'd replayed that moment 100 times, searching for meaning. Now it was laid bare. Respect isn't given by rank, Rourke continued, his tone like gravel. It's earned in the way you carry yourself when no one's watching. You stood like a soldier. You held your ground. That deserves recognition. Emma's chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to say thank you, but her voice caught. Rourke leaned forward. But a salute is only a beginning. I want to see if discipline at a gate carries into harder places. Her eyes widened. Sir, you'll assist my staff. Clerical work, scheduling, whatever's needed. But don't misunderstand, this isn't busy work. Mistakes here cost more than embarrassment. They cost lives. The weight of his words pressed down like stone. Emma straightened. Understood, sir. Rourke studied her another moment, then nodded. Report here daily at 0700. Dismissed. The next days blurred into a storm of details. Emma was assigned to a cramped desk outside the operations wing, a place buzzing with the constant hum of activity. Officers strode past with files clutched under arms, radios crackled with coded chatter, and whiteboards were filled with cryptic mission outlines. Emma's tasks seemed simple: log entries, update schedules, deliver briefings from one office to another. Yet she quickly realized the stakes behind each page of paperwork. One wrong digit in a time slot could scramble an entire operation. One missed signature could delay a deployment. She worked with painstaking care, her pen strokes deliberate, her attention laser-focused. Rourke rarely addressed her directly, but she felt his presence constantly. He passed her desk daily, glancing at her work with an unreadable expression. He never offered praise, never scolded, just observed. And somehow, that was worse. The other staff noticed too. One petty officer leaned over her desk one afternoon, lowering his voice. "Word is the commander handpicked you. No idea why. Don't screw it up." Emma forced a polite nod, though the words stung. She didn't want resentment from others. She hadn't asked for this, but she would not fail. Late one evening, when most offices had emptied, Emma remained at her desk, eyes gritty from hours of combing through logs. She spotted an inconsistency, a mission time listed as 2301. Briefing 0200 in another. Her pulse quickened. Which one was correct? She weighed her options. If she ignored it, maybe no one would notice. But if the wrong time went forward, it could unravel an operation. She rose, file in hand, and approached Rourke's office. The door was ajar, lamplight spilling across the floor. He looked up when she entered. "Private?" His voice was calm, but edged with steel. "Sir," she said, holding out the file. "There's a discrepancy in mission timing. I didn't want to assume which was correct without confirming." Rourke took the papers, scanned them, then set them down. His eyes flicked back to her, unreadable. "You caught this?" "Yes, sir." He leaned back, steepling his fingers. Silence stretched. Then, to her shock, the corner of his mouth curved, just slightly. "Good eye." 2 words, barely more than a grunt. Yet they lit a fire in her chest. Rourke closed the file. "Go get some rest, Harris. You'll need it." Walking back to the barracks that night, Emma's steps felt lighter. Not because she'd been praised. It wasn't about that. It was because she had proven, if only for a moment, that she belonged here, that her discipline wasn't confined to the gate, but could hold weight in the shadowed halls of Building 12. She knew more challenges lay ahead. She knew the eyes on her would only grow sharper. But she also knew this. Commander Rourke had tested her, and she hadn't broken. For the first time since she raised her hand to enlist, Emma Harris felt the faint spark of something more than duty. She felt purpose. By the end of the week, Emma Harris could feel the shift in the air. It wasn't dramatic at first, just subtle glances in the chow hall, a muttered comment as she passed in the corridor, a petty officer who paused mid-conversation when she walked into the room. But the whispers spread like wildfire, traveling faster than any official report ever could. Everyone had heard. The commander saluted her first. Emma hated the way the words clung to her. She wanted to shake them off, insist it wasn't true, that people were exaggerating. But she couldn't deny it. She'd lived it. Rourke had stepped out of his SUV, stood before her at the gate, and saluted without hesitation. And now, that moment had become legend. In the barracks, her roommate Torres smirked as she scrolled through her phone. "You're trending," she teased, holding up a group chat full of memes. One showed a cartoon of a commander saluting a traffic cone labeled Private Harris. Another had the caption, Respect isn't earned, it's harassed. Emma groaned. This is ridiculous. Torres grinned. No, this is power. Do you realize how rare it is for a private to be talked about at all? Most of us are ghosts until deployment. I don't want to be talked about, Emma muttered, unlacing her boots. You don't get to choose that now, Torres replied, tossing her phone aside. You caught the commander's eye. Whether you like it or not, you're in the spotlight. Emma lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. The salute had felt personal, meaningful. But the gossip cheapened it, turned it into a punchline. She didn't want fame, she wanted respect, earned quietly, without spectacle. Still, she couldn't ignore what was happening. The salute had marked her, and now the base was watching. 2 days later, her sergeant called her into his office. Staff Sergeant Daniels sat behind his desk, his expression as hard as always, but there was something different in his eyes, something she couldn't place. Private Harris, he said, gesturing for her to sit. She obeyed, sitting stiff-backed in the chair. You've been on Rourke's detail a week now. No complaints so far. Thank you, Sergeant, Emma said carefully. Daniels leaned forward, lacing his fingers. Listen carefully. You're walking a fine line. The commander sees something in you. Don't ask me what. But the rest of the base? They don't like it. They don't like a private being singled out, especially by him. Emma's stomach tightened. I didn't ask for this, Sergeant. I know, but perception is reality here. Some will assume you're special. Some will assume you're a fluke. And some will want to see you fail just to prove a point. Emma swallowed hard. What should I do? Daniels's eyes softened. For the briefest moment. Do your job. Do it better than anyone else. That's the only way through. Emma nodded, a knot forming in her chest. The weight of expectation pressed heavier in building. 12. Officers who once passed her with indifference now watched her. More closely. She felt it in their narrowed eyes, their clipped tones, the way they double-checked the papers she handed them. It wasn't hostility, not yet. It was something colder, skepticism. She responded with perfection. Her reports were double-checked, her memos delivered ahead of schedule, her posture unyielding. She became invisible in the best way, efficient, reliable, without error. Still, the whispers followed. She overheard 2 staffers in the hallway. Why her? Because Rourke sees potential. Or because he's making a point. You salute a private. You send a message. Maybe it's not about her at all. The words stung more than she wanted to admit. What if they were right? What if she wasn't chosen for who she was, but for what she represented? That night, lying in her bunk, Emma replayed the salute again. In her mind. The precision of his gesture, the intensity in his eyes. No, it hadn't been symbolic. It had been personal. She refused to believe otherwise. One afternoon, as she delivered a briefing folder to Rourke's office, she found him alone, leaning over a map scattered with red markers. He looked up when she entered, eyes sharp as ever. On time, he said simply, taking the folder. Yes, sir. She hesitated at the door, then gathered the courage to speak. Sir, may I ask something? He raised a brow. Go ahead. Why me? She asked softly. The room fell silent. Rourke studied her for a long moment, then set the folder aside, because discipline is rare. Anyone can shine when the stakes are high, but only a few stand tall when no one's watching. You did. Emma's throat tightened. Rourke's gaze held hers. Don't waste it. She nodded, her voice too choked to reply. The salute was no longer just a rumor. It was a catalyst, reshaping her path. Emma could feel it every time she put on her uniform, every time she walked into Building 12, every time a fellow soldier looked at her with curiosity or resentment. She hadn't asked for this journey, but it was hers now. And deep down, A flicker of determination burned brighter than fear. If the base was watching, then she would give them something worth watching. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the narrow hallway as Emma Harris balanced a stack of files against her chest. She walked quickly, boots clicking against the tile floor of Building 12. Every folder she carried was marked confidential or restricted, the bold red stamps staring at her like warnings. She had been on this assignment for nearly 2 weeks, and the pressure hadn't eased. If anything, it had sharpened. This wasn't gate duty anymore. This was the nerve center of SEAL operations, where every detail mattered. Clerical errors here didn't just mean reprimands. They meant missions compromised, lives endangered. Emma never forgot that. Her day began before dawn. She would wake in the barracks, dress in the dark, and step into the humid Virginia air. As the base stirred awake, by 0700, she was seated at her small desk just outside Commander Rourke's office. At first, her tasks seemed mundane: typing schedules, organizing briefings, maintaining logs. But soon she realized the weight of what she touched. A flight time adjusted here could reroute a deployment. A change in meeting order could mean one commander briefed before another. Tiny ripples that cascaded outward into the rhythm of the Navy's most elite fighters. And Rourke noticed everything. He never hovered, never lectured, but she felt his eyes on her like a shadow. He would glance at her desk as he passed, sometimes nodding faintly when her files were arranged with military precision, sometimes saying nothing at all. That silence kept her sharp. One afternoon, as Emma delivered a folder to the operations wing, she overheard voices from inside. "Why is she here?" one officer muttered. "Rourke handpicked her," another replied. "She's a private." "For God's sake. We've got senior staff with years of experience." "And yet he trusts her," the second officer said. "You think that's an accident?" Emma's chest tightened. She turned quickly down the hallway before they noticed her. The doubt gnawed at her. She didn't want to be seen as the commander's experiment. She wanted to be seen as competent in her own right. Later that week, her test came. She was reviewing a logistics memo when she spotted a discrepancy. 2 sets of coordinates, only a few numbers apart, but pointing to entirely different grid locations. If left unchecked, the error could reroute an entire supply drop to the wrong site. Emma's pulse quickened. She could ignore it. No one would blame her. It wasn't her report. But something in her gut screamed otherwise. She rose, memo in hand, and knocked on Rourke's door. "Enter," came his voice. She stepped in, saluting quickly. "Sir, I found a discrepancy in the logistics memo. I wasn't sure which was correct." Rourke took the paper, scanning it in silence. He looked up, eyes sharp. "You caught this?" "Yes, sir." He set the file down, leaned back, and regarded her steadily. The silence stretched until she thought she'd made a mistake. Then finally he said, "Good." Most would have passed it along without question. Emma exhaled slowly, tension releasing from her chest. That night, she lay awake in her bunk, replaying his words. 2 syllables. Good, but from him, it felt heavier than metals. Over time, the pattern repeated. Small details crossed her desk, each one a hidden test. A flight manifest missing a name. A supply request with mismatched codes. A meeting note with the wrong time zone. Each time, Emma caught it, corrected it, or flagged it. And each time, Rourke's expression gave nothing away. Until one evening. She was gathering files for the next morning's briefing when Rourke approached her desk. "You know why these small things matter?" he asked, voice low. Emma straightened. "Because small mistakes lead to bigger ones, sir." Rourke shook his head slightly. "Because lives ride on them. A mistyped coordinate isn't just ink on a page. It's a helicopter landing in the wrong valley. It's a team waiting in the dark and finding no resupply. Discipline in detail is discipline in battle. Emma's throat tightened. Yes, sir. He studied her a moment longer. Don't ever forget that. Word of Emma's growing role continued to spread. Some respected her. Others resented her. She felt it in the glances, the hushed conversations that fell silent when she entered. But she also noticed something else. Younger soldiers, new privates, recruits fresh from training, looked at her differently. Not with envy, but with hope. She caught one whispering to another in the mess line, "That's her." The one Rourke saluted. It embarrassed her, but it also lit a fire in her chest. If she was going to be seen, she wanted to be seen as worthy. One late night, as she organized files, she realized she hadn't been back to the gate in weeks. She missed it. Oddly enough, the hum of cars, the rhythm of IDs, the discipline of standing post. That was where she'd learned her lessons, where she'd been tested in silence. Now, the test was louder, sharper, and infinitely heavier. But she would meet it the same way, by standing tall, by refusing to falter, by carrying discipline in every breath, whether anyone noticed or not. The office was quiet after hours, the hum of computers and the faint scratch of Emma's pen the only sounds. Outside, the base had settled into its nighttime rhythm, boots fading down hallways, doors clicking shut, voices lowering to murmurs. But inside Building 12, Emma sat at her desk, shoulders squared, sorting the final stack of reports for the morning briefing. She was tired, but her focus didn't waver. Every page mattered. She checked dates, compared signatures, and flagged. One report that used yesterday's timestamp instead of today's. Small, meticulous tasks, but she knew by now that small things were never small. The door behind her opened. Emma straightened instinctively as Commander Rourke stepped out of his office. He wore his fatigued uniform, sleeves rolled high on his forearms, his expression unreadable. In one hand, he carried the day's finished. "Folder, you're still here," he said. "Yes, sir," Emma replied quickly. Rourke studied her a moment. "Come in." She followed him into his office. The room was sparse, but commanding, maps pinned to corkboards, a few medals in frames. Stacks of mission folders on a table. Rourke moved with his usual deliberate precision, setting the folder aside and motioning for her to sit. Emma hesitated. She wasn't sure she belonged in a chair in this room, but she obeyed. For a long moment, Rourke said nothing. He leaned against his desk, arms folded, eyes fixed on her. It was the same stare that had silenced rooms full of officers. "Do you know why I saluted you that day at the gate?" he asked at last. Emma blinked. The question hit her harder than she expected. It was the one she'd replayed in her head for weeks, the one whispered in mess halls and barracks. And now he was asking her directly. "No, sir," she admitted. "I've wondered." Rourke's gaze sharpened. Most people think respect comes from rank. They're wrong. Rank is just an assignment. Respect is earned in the moments when no one's looking. Emma sat very still, heart thudding. "You stood at that gate," Rourke continued, "with more discipline than I've seen from men twice your age and rank. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't performing. You just did the job with precision, like it mattered. Because it does matter." He paused, letting the weight of the words settle. "That's why I saluted you. Not because of who you are on paper, but because of how you carried yourself when you thought no one noticed." Emma swallowed hard, her throat tightening. "Thank you, sir," she said softly, the words feeling small compared to the enormity of what he had given her. Rourke pushed off the desk and began pacing slowly. "Do you know how many times I've seen good men die? Because of one careless mistake? A name misspelled on a manifest, a digit swapped in a coordinate. Tiny things, things most people shrug at. And then suddenly, you've got a team waiting for a supply drop that never comes, or landing in a valley crawling with insurgents because someone wrote east instead of west. His voice was calm, but Emma felt the fury under the surface, honed, sharp over years of battle. Discipline, he said, turning back to her, isn't about shining boots or standing tall for inspection. Discipline is about knowing that every detail, every second, could mean life or death for someone else. Emma nodded, her chest tight. She thought of the reports she'd corrected, the errors she'd flagged. For the first time, she understood the true stakes behind her small victories. "Sir," she said carefully, "why tell me this?" Rourke's eyes softened slightly. "Because you already understand it, even if you don't realize it yet. You proved it at that gate. And you've proven it every day since. My job is to sharpen that instinct in you, not smother it." The words lodged in Emma's chest like anchors. For so long, she had doubted whether she belonged in this role. She worried she was a token, a symbol of Rourke's point to others. But now she saw it differently. He wasn't using her, he was testing her. And in his own way, he was teaching her. "Sir," she asked after a pause, "do you regret it? Saluting me, I mean." Rourke gave a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "No, but you should know it made things harder for you. People will doubt you. They'll resent you. Some will even root for you to fail. You'll have to be twice as sharp to silence them." Emma straightened in her chair. "Then I'll be twice as sharp." For the first time, Rourke's smile deepened, reaching his eyes. Good. The next days felt different. Emma moved through her duties with new clarity. She no longer saw the files as paper, but as veins of a living system. She checked each with precision, her mind echoing Rourke's words. Lives ride on them. And though the whispers hadn't vanished, they no longer cut as deep. She overheard one lieutenant scoff. "She's just the gate girl." Emma kept walking, head high. If they wanted her to prove herself, she would. Not with words, not with gossip, but with unshakable consistency. That was her power. Late one night, Torres found her still awake in the barracks, polishing her boots. By the dim light. "Again?" Torres said, half amused. "You're obsessed." Emma looked up, brush in hand. "Not obsessed. Disciplined." Torres chuckled, climbing into her bunk. Same thing. But Emma only smiled faintly, hearing Rourke's voice in her head. Discipline isn't about the shine, it's about the life it protects. She understood now, and for the first time, since the salute, she no longer felt like an imposter. She felt like a soldier with a purpose. Morning light filtered through the barracks windows as Emma Harris laced her boots, the tight loops a ritual that kept her grounded. Building 12 awaited, its maze of narrow halls and humming computers already alive with movement. She paused for a moment, listening to the faint shuffle of footsteps and low murmur of voices beyond her door. She had been here for nearly a month now, and every day reinforced one truth. This assignment was more than a job, it was a proving ground. The salutation at the gate, once a fleeting moment, had become a defining symbol for her peers. Some saw her as lucky, others as privileged. Some whispered with admiration, others with resentment. Emma felt it in every glance, every hushed exchange, every double take as she walked past. By now, she had learned not to let it shake her. Discipline wasn't only about accuracy in paperwork or precision in schedules, it was about bearing, composure, and the silent assertion of competence. At the operations wing, younger privates often lingered near her desk, ostensibly to ask questions about logistics, though Emma quickly realized they were there to observe. Their curiosity was palpable. One morning, a recruit named Danielsa, 19-year-old from North Carolina, hesitated at her cubicle, nervously shifting from foot to foot. Private Harris? He stammered. I heard you were, the one Rourke saluted. Emma looked up, carefully neutral. Yes, she said simply. His eyes widened. Wow, that's... Respect isn't given by rank, Emma said, finishing the thought for him. It's earned by how you carry yourself, when no one's looking. That's all it was. Daniels nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of her words. I guess I've been slacking at the gate myself, he admitted. Then start today, Emma said, her tone firm but not unkind. Discipline is cumulative. It builds over time. Nobody notices the small things until they matter. He left, jaw tight with newfound determination. Emma leaned back in her chair, realizing she had just passed on a lesson Rourke had taught her, and it felt important. The influence wasn't universal. Some officers and staff still regarded her with thinly veiled skepticism. Why does he even keep her around? One lieutenant muttered in the hallway, voice low. She's just a private. Emma heard it, of course. But she no longer allowed herself to flinch. She responded with action, not argument. Reports were checked and rechecked, schedules flawless, memos accurate to the smallest digit. When errors appeared elsewhere, she corrected them, silently and efficiently, never seeking recognition. Her work spoke louder than any gossip. One afternoon, a critical situation emerged. A last-minute personnel change threatened to derail an operational briefing. Names were mismatched, rooms double-booked, and timelines impossible. Staffers scrambled, muttering curses under their breath. Emma took a deep breath, pulling out her checklist. She moved quickly, reallocating rooms, adjusting schedules, notifying officers. By the time the commander arrived, every detail was aligned. The chaos smoothed over as if it had never existed. Rourke entered, noting the calm efficiency of the office. His eyes found hers, just briefly before he nodded. No words, but she understood. That evening, back at her desk, Emma reflected on the day. The salutation at the gate had been a spark. Now it was a responsibility. Younger soldiers looked to her for guidance, whether she sought it or not. She was setting a standard, demonstrating that competence and composure mattered more than rank or recognition. Even those who resented her influence couldn't deny her consistency, yet resentment was still present. She overheard one senior staffer whispering to another, "She's getting too much attention. A private shouldn't be influencing operations this way." Another replied, "Don't forget Commander Rourke chose her. We follow him, not gossip." Emma didn't respond. She merely returned to her work. It wasn't her job to convince them of her worth. Her job was to perform with unyielding discipline. Late that week, Rourke approached her desk. His presence carried the usual weight, and she instinctively straightened. "Private Harris," he said quietly. "Yes, sir?" "I've noticed how other soldiers are looking at you now," he said. "Some with respect, some with skepticism, and some with resentment." "Yes, sir," Emma replied. "Good," he said, pausing. "If you can survive that, you can survive anything. Leadership isn't about rank or medals. It's about influence, and influence is earned through action, not words." Emma nodded, absorbing the lesson. She realized that being chosen for recognition at the gate wasn't simply a reward, it was a responsibility. A private, standing tall, could shape the behavior of peers and the culture of a unit without saying a word. The next morning, she returned to the gate for a routine inspection as part of a rotating schedule. Some of the older soldiers were astonished to see her there, apparently out of the world of Building 12. "Back at the gate?" one muttered under his breath. Emma simply raised her chin, scanned IDs with care, and treated every car as if it carried the most valuable cargo in the world. Younger privates watched and quietly began to mimic her posture, her methodical approach. By evening, she realized that the gate had become more than a post. It had become a classroom. Every salute she returned, every precise ID check, every moment of discipline was a lesson, not just for her, but for anyone willing to watch. By the end of the week, Emma felt a quiet pride. She was still a private. She still answered to the commander. But she was no longer just someone Rourke had saluted. She was someone soldiers could look to as an example. A recruit approached her quietly at the end of a shift. "Private Harris," he said, hesitating. "Thank you. I've been slacking, and seeing how you do this, I think I get it now. Discipline matters." Emma smiled faintly. "Then start now. Not for me, not for him, but for yourself. That's what counts." The young recruit nodded, leaving with a newfound determination. Emma watched him go, the sun setting low over the horizon. She understood finally that leadership wasn't about rank, medals, or recognition. It was about influence, the quiet, consistent shaping of those around you. And she had begun to shape the base itself, silently, steadily. That night, lying in her bunk, she reflected on the journey. The commander's salute had been a spark, but the real lesson lay in responsibility. She realized she had earned the attention not for luck, but for discipline, precision, and the refusal to falter. And now others were following. Whether they liked it or not, the weight was heavy, but it felt right. Emma Harris had become more than a private. She had become an example. The morning air was crisp, a rare breeze cutting through the usual Virginia humidity. Emma Harris adjusted her patrol cap, feeling the weight of her boots on the pavement, the hum of the base stirring behind her. She had returned to the gate, temporarily rotated back from Building 12, but today felt different. Today, every detail, every motion, every moment carried significance beyond routine. Her assignment had grown far beyond checking IDs. For weeks, she had been trusted with sensitive files, critical memos, and the small yet deadly tasks that kept elite SEAL operations running smoothly. Every day had been a lesson in discipline, vigilance, and quiet leadership. Today, that training would be put to the ultimate test. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. She was midway through a shift when a black SUV rolled up slowly. Her heart skipped a beat. She recognized the vehicle immediately. Commander Rourke. The same vehicle, the same aura of quiet authority she had first encountered weeks ago. "They?" Driver handed over an ID without speaking. Emma scanned it, confirmed the credential, and handed it back with the usual, "You're good to go, sir." But Rourke did not drive on. He stepped out, his presence filling the gate with an invisible pressure. Emma straightened instantly, saluting as he approached. Rourke returned the salute, deliberate and precise, the same way he had that first day. But today, there was something different in his expression. A subtle approval, a quiet acknowledgement of the journey she had completed. He spoke softly. "Private Harris, follow me." Her pulse quickened. She obeyed, walking beside him to a nearby administrative building. The hallways were empty, the quiet amplifying each step. They reached an office she hadn't entered before, a conference room, lined with officers and senior staff, all eyes immediately finding her. Emma froze for a moment. The whispers, the skeptics, the doubters, every single gaze fell upon her. Rourke stepped forward, placing a hand briefly on her shoulder. "This is Private First Class Emma Harris," he announced. "She has been on my detail for over a month. During that time, she has demonstrated exceptional discipline, precision, and unwavering composure under scrutiny and pressure. I am here to formally recognize her performance." The room fell silent. Emma's chest tightened. She had never sought recognition, She had never wanted the attention, only the responsibility. Yet here it was, undeniable and real, offered not as a reward, but as acknowledgment of her earned standing. Staff Sergeant Daniels stepped forward, nodding at her. "Private Harris, you've set the standard for privates on this base. Your diligence and discipline have not gone unnoticed. Today, we recognize you formally with the commanding officer's commendation for exceptional duty." Emma's eyes widened. The words echoed in her mind. Commendation, exceptional duty, recognition. But she felt more grounded than elated. This wasn't a medal for show. This was confirmation of everything she had already known. Discipline mattered. Precision mattered. Quiet leadership mattered. Rourke leaned slightly toward her. "Remember, Harris, this isn't about pride. It's about responsibility. You have influence now. Use it wisely. Set the example. Protect those around you, even when no one is watching." Emma nodded, absorbing the gravity of his words. The applause that followed was polite but genuine. Fellow privates offered nods, officers gave brief smiles, and even those who had doubted her seemed to acknowledge the truth of her abilities. Emma realized in that moment that respect wasn't demanded. It was earned quietly and consistently, until even skeptics could no longer ignore it. She accepted the commendation with a small bow, her salute crisp. She didn't feel superior, she felt accountable. Rourke's eyes met hers again. In that gaze, there was no pretense, no expectation beyond what she had already proven capable of. Just acknowledgement and trust. After the ceremony, she returned to Building 12. Tasks awaited, just as demanding as before. But something had shifted. Every memo, every file, every scheduling detail now carried weight, not just because mistakes could cost lives, but because she had earned a place where her decisions truly mattered. A younger recruit approached her desk cautiously. "Private Harris," he said, eyes wide, I want to do what you do. How do you stay like that? Calm, focused, respected?" Emma smiled faintly, the memory of Rourke's words echoing in her mind. Discipline isn't a show. It's quiet, steady. You do the job correctly, even when no one sees. You carry it into every task, no matter how small. That's how respect is earned. The recruit nodded, taking the advice to heart. Emma realized her influence extended far beyond Building 12, far beyond the gate. She was shaping behavior, instilling discipline, and setting a standard that would ripple across the base. That evening, Emma returned to the gate. The sun was setting, bathing the asphalt in amber light. She adjusted her patrol cap, checked IDs with meticulous care, and moved with the same precision she had demonstrated from day one. She felt grounded, connected to the place where her journey had begun, the site of the first recognition of her potential. Rourke's SUV pulled up again, but this time she wasn't startled. She greeted him with a salute, steady and confident. He returned it with that same deliberate motion, then nodded once. A simple gesture, yet now layered with meaning. No longer a test, no longer a mystery, now acknowledgement. Walking back to the barracks, Emma reflected on the journey. She had started as a private assigned to the gate, overlooked and underestimated. But her discipline, vigilance, and quiet commitment had earned her the respect of the most formidable SEAL commander on base. She had faced scrutiny, whispers, and skepticism and emerged stronger, more confident, and fully aware of the responsibility that recognition carried. The salute at the gate had been a spark. The tests in Building 12 had been fire. And now, the commendation, the influence she wielded, and the trust she had earned were the solid ground she stood on. She knew the journey wasn't over. Discipline and responsibility were lifelong commitments. Mistakes could still happen, and every decision had consequences. But she had proven herself capable of meeting the weight of expectation. She was no longer just Emma Harris, a private at the gate. She was a soldier, a model, a force quietly shaping her world. And in that quiet strength, she found something more profound than recognition or medals. She found purpose. The night fell, stars emerging above the base. Emma looked up, boots dusty from a day of duty, uniform neat, posture straight. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the faint chatter of younger soldiers, footsteps echoing, the rhythm of a base alive. She smiled softly. Discipline, respect, influence, she carried them all, not for herself, but for those who would follow. And for the first time, she understood fully what Rourke had seen from the very beginning. Potential in someone who dared to stand tall, even when no one was watching. The gate, once a symbol of monotony, had become her proving ground. And she had triumphed.